Hi, I'm Joe Sloane. I have a company called Sloane's, based in Bangkok, and I work with a variety of different farms, concentrating on the ethics of the farms and to be as sustainable as possible. Bryan here is one of the farmers I've worked with for many years, so we're doing the talk together.
Yes.
Right.
As I mentioned earlier, my name is Bryan Hugill. We have a farm up in the northeast of Thailand. I'm on stage again another time today, so please don't get bored. So our farm is predominantly a rice farm, or a jasmine rice farm, but we also raise pigs as well as part of that process, and we'll be talking about the pigs now. Yeah. So
How do you start?
how does this thing work? Click, click, click.
Yeah.
Yeah.
เดี๋ยวขอหน้า PowerPoint ขึ้นจอหน่อยไหมครับ
So I have a bunch of photos that I want to show you. Basically, the transition that we went from the piggery as we inherited it. It's a family farm, and then as basically my wife and I took over the farm and have started transitioning towards something a little bit more humane. And you'll see what I mean by that. So essentially, this is kind of what we inherited. If anybody knows what industrial pig farming is like, it's a bunch of cages, a bunch of small cages. It's a lot of concrete everywhere. It's pigs screaming at each other, pigs screaming at their handlers. It's not the most pleasant environment in which to work at all, and that's an understatement. Basically, we inherited 2 piggery sheds. This is one of them. The shed is around 35 years old. This was the grower finisher shed. So basically, you have piglets and then weaners and then growers finishers eventually a little bit further on, and then you sell them for market. And what we did is we looked at all of this and what was happening over there, and basically I was working there every day, cleaning, basically washing pig shit and urine out of the piggery every day, 3-4 hours at a time, surrounded by flies and mosquitoes and black water. Pigs try to bite your hand off when you feed them. It is a terrible, absolutely terrible environment in which to work. And coming from my background as an ecologist, I looked at this very artificial system and I said, enough. Basically, I've had enough. If we're going to continue with this, we need to do something much better. And so we started playing around, really sketching up what it could be, what we kind of wanted. And as everything starts on an envelope drawing or on a serviette or on the back of a cigarette pack, and it's kind of what we did. And we started playing around with options, really looking at the one pig shed as potentially the starting point. And started smashing up all the floors and looking at Korean natural farming system, which is a deep litter system. So you have really deep pens, so a meter, 1.2 meters down, biochar at the bottom, so charred rice husk, logs on top of that, and then a big mixture of bedding material. The idea is to create a microbial-rich environment in which the pigs can occupy. This is not yet a free-range system. Please don't confuse the two. It is still in pens, but it is one step closer towards that. And we started ripping up all the floors, ripping up all the old metalwork, and changing it, basically. So the starting point was really just looking at the pens themselves. And one of the major issues was pigs were essentially living up to their ankles, which is a pig's ankle is not very far, but it's far enough, living in its own, basically, pig shit, yeah? So, and it was basically living its whole life like that. And so you end up with a lot of flies, a lot of mosquitoes, a lot of smell, and really unhappy pigs. So diarrhea is rife. You have to inject a lot to keep them healthy. And so we started throwing down a bedding material to see what would happen. And within the space of a week or two, most of the problems had cleared up. And this was still on a concrete floor. After we had ripped up all the concrete floors and changed the bedding, it had completely changed. And now the whole piggery basically smells like compost, really good compost. We started changing their feed as well, looking at more fermented food types and not just dry feed all the time, looking at living feeds as well, things like worms or maggots or other things that pigs eat. Pigs are omnivores. Please remember that, just like chickens are omnivores. Their entire life should not be lived on dry feed. Pigs are digging all the time for roots and worms and whatnot. And so we had to start thinking very carefully about this, changing the way they're eating, changing the way they're drinking. So we had to change. Pigs are often fighting over the drinking nipples, drinking spigots, because there's too many pigs in a pen. So we had to change the way basically they drink. So we use hanging drinkers that we made ourselves. And pigs are so focused on grabbing the hanging feeder that they don't have time to fight with each other. Remember, a pig has the intelligence of a 3-year-old child, and in some cases more intelligent than most 3-year-old kids. You can teach them to play video games, actually. They're incredibly smart. So as soon as you can start thinking a little bit like that in terms of this creature has intelligence, you very much change the way you raise them. Ultimately, they are still for slaughter, simple. But there's no reason why you should treat them like garbage in the interim period. An animal that's better treated has better quality meat, pure and simple. It's lower stress, lower disease. This gives you an idea very briefly on how we built the pens. So the different layers that are inside, it's like a lasagna, built up in different layers. Each pen holds about 1 ton of biochar, so it's 1 ton of carbon for those climate change people over here. There's a lot happening inside there. And this is what a pen looks like when it's finished. So really, this is for growers finishers. We sit with about 4 to 5 pigs inside a pen that's 3 by 3 meters. This is still not good enough by any means. The next step for us is really to focus on free range, opening these pens up and really using these just for bringing the pigs in the day or 2 days before we sell them. Free range, you've got to try and go and catch them. So we need to have a place we can keep them. Yeah. And these are some of the new pigs we're playing with. These are Hampshire Duroc crosses and Meishan. The black one is the Meishan, which is the oldest recorded pig breed in the world. It's around 5,000 years of history. It's a potbelly pig, so we'll be playing with these now as well. These are now about 2 months old, these breeders. Yeah. We're also looking at other ways of doing feed, like I mentioned earlier, so in terms of living feeds. So we're playing with things like black soldier fly larvae, earthworms, anything just to push up the protein and fat content in their feeds, but it's more easily digestible than dry feeds. This is just a trap that we built and basically some ideas that we're playing with for raising them. These are black soldier flies, the larvae. They're about 1.5 inches long. They're incredibly clean, believe it or not, and the pigs go absolutely mental over them. They love them, just like ducks and chickens and fish and frogs and all the other things. Another one that we're playing with as well is azolla ferns. It has an incredible history, but the azolla fern, in terms of putting an interesting amino acid base into their feed, is good. You can feed it fresh or dry. So we're playing with different blends, basically. This is the piggery, so the long rectangular shed is the one that you keep seeing. The square one just below that is an old shed that we're going to start renovating within the next couple of months. And this is basically to say thank you very much. I think this is you.
Okay, I guess next stage, obviously after Bryan's done his bit, is it comes over to me. I guess the main thing I want to talk about first of all is why I kind of started doing this. My background as a chef, I spent many years in kind of high-end kitchens, various places around the world, and came to Thailand as a chef originally, just over a decade ago. When I first arrived here, it was very different to what it is now. There was very little sustainability. Almost everything was being imported. And I'd come from London, in Michelin-star restaurants in London, where I could ring up my supplier and I could choose which breed of pig I wanted to put on my menu. And I could talk directly to these farms. And that is one of my huge passions as a chef when I was in London. To come to Thailand, although I, like so many people, fell in love with Thailand and their love of food here, that it was a case of, this is very different to what I was used to. After leaving my life as a chef, I basically slowly got involved in going to my passion of butchery and things. I started making sausages, I started making kind of bacons, of things that I just couldn't find here that was annoying me. And then my passion for, I guess, sustainable and organic and high welfare animals, that led me then to try and source better quality farms. This was a nightmare at the beginning. Everyone told me, oh, you know, the pork's here's not bad already. But as a chef, not bad wasn't good for me. I wanted something better. I wanted something different. So although lots of people said it wouldn't happen, through a few friends here, they basically put me in contact with some permaculture farms. And from then, Sloane slowly grew. So now basically the way I work is I work with various different farms around the country. There's about half a dozen in total, of different sizes and different styles, but whether it's kind of permaculture style or they're free range, they all have pretty much the same concept behind them. The main thing for me is to make sure people are doing it properly. I go and audit these farms myself. You know, people always talk about, oh, I've got organic pork here. There's no organic meat in Thailand. So for me, rather than using a organic body, I go there myself and I go and check things myself. So I have basically a list of rules and regulations that I will allow from my farms. Certain things that are big no-nos, if I see things like farrowing crates or sow stalls where the pigs are kind of crammed in together, then sorry, I'm not interested in using you. The other side of things is basically, I guess one of the main things I'm looking for is the comfort of the pigs. So if you saw the photos earlier of Raitong, you'll see there's natural bedding there. They're not on concrete, they're not on slats. They are there, they're comfortable, they're not crammed in together, they can move around. You'll also notice in the previous photos as well, there's things like there's tyres hanging up. So there's enrichment for the pigs. They're there, they've got something to play with. Again, going back to a reference of the intelligence of a 3-year-old, then we want to keep our kids entertained. And this should be the same for pigs. So basically, start wrapping this up. This is my kind of aim, is to try and get more people to be aware of where their meat's coming from, whether it's pigs or chickens or anything, and to make sure you know what is involved. As chefs, then I recognise a lot of faces around here. I work with a lot of you here, big and small. Ideally, it's a case of I wanted to push people to understand what they're buying and why they buy it, and why farmers like Bryan go into the detail of what they do. The big thing for me as a chef was always a case of, you want the best quality as possible, and you don't get good quality meat without a good quality farm. That's it.
I think, for me, the game changer was really, although from an ecological angle I understood what was perhaps required, for me the game changer was when we moved back to our farm full time. My son was 2 years old at the time, and by the time we started really getting into things, he was 3. And I took him into the piggery with me after just really having understood that pigs are as intelligent as he is, and looking at this and going, not to anthropomorphize pigs, but to go in terms of intelligence equating, would I ever do this kind of setup to a group of 3-year-old kids? Like, you need to give them space to run around, you need to give them decent food, you need to give them a decent environment in which to live, and ultimately, hopefully, with a bit of guidance, they become decent people. Obviously, people we don't send off for slaughter, but hopefully not. But for the pigs, we do. And so to try and apply some of these principles back to the pigs, honestly, absolutely changed everything. And it's so easy to work there now. And I think our time is up. Mm-hmm. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.